Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new tutorial video by WTTN. And today we'll be talking about creating a RESTful microservice, something that will help you create APIs where you can exchange data via HTTP protocol. Okay, so we are going to use Spring Boot for this particular demo, and we are going to be using Java as the backend language for this one. Okay, so before you get started, there's a simple way to do the step one, that is creating this particular lovely project structure and hierarchy. The easiest way to do this is to go to Spring Initializer. So this one will help you get started with creating that project for you. So all you need to do is select what type of project it is. I always go with Maven. I've worked with Maven throughout my career, so I prefer Maven. Language, we can use any of the JVM languages, Kotlin, Java, Groovy. I work in Java and Kotlin, more in Java, so for this tutorial I'll be using Java. You can select the Spring Boot version you want. I'm going with the 2.6.2 version. That's the default which will be selected at this point of time. What you can do is then change the group, artifact name, description, package name, all those lovely things. Then you can also decide what kind of packaging do you want. Do you want it to be a jar, which is a Spring Boot application, or do you want it a war, which is the traditional Spring MVC kind of application where the war file is deployed onto an application or a web server. Then also you can decide what kind of Java version you want, 17, 11, or 8. These are like the major standard versions that are being used. So I went with Java 17. Traditionally, I would prefer people to start with 8. If you're not comfortable with Java just starting out, start with 8, move on to 11, and then obviously move on to 17. Okay, after you've done all of this, here's the fun part. You can add your dependencies here. So for the sake of this demo, we actually only need Spring Web, because in this particular part, I'll just be introducing the API, how to create an API and how to consume it. A very simple, basic get call that we're going to do. But for the sake of this series, right, going forward, we'll be interacting with a database. So we'll be using Spring Data for that, Spring Data JPA in particular, to get that particular implementation from the database. And instead of using a MySQL, Oracle, or any MongoDB, something like that on the back end, we'll be using an in-memory H2 database, because this is just a demo. That's why. So all you need to do is just click on Add Dependencies, type in whatever you need. For now, I would say just stick with Spring Web. That should be good enough, because that's what is going to help you create the RESTful endpoints. Okay, so after you're done, just generate this particular project, and you can use any IDE. I'm using IntelliJ, so you just need to import this like a Maven project. It's going to take some time if you're doing it for the first time. Once you import it from this POM file, right, you're going to have a bunch of things being imported based on whatever dependencies that you defined. And what is going to happen is it's going to use whatever dependencies we defined here in the POM, and it's going to import all of that into the local repo. It's going to use it to reference those dependencies. So one dependency that I added in later is this one, the Lombok, because Lombok is something that I use. It's not a necessity for you guys. You can either use it or not use it. It's up to you. Okay, now let's start with the actual implementation of the APIs. So what we're going to do is, this is a plain, simple, hollow Spring Boot application. It does nothing right now. So if I run this project, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to start this particular application on a Apache Tomcat server, which is embedded, and it's going to start it on the default port 8080. We can change this port, and we can also change where we want to host it. So it's going to host it on Tomcat. We can change that as well if you want to. Okay, so as you see, we just ran the project. It does absolutely nothing. There's no endpoints right now, so it's not going to do anything. So let's introduce an endpoint. So I'm just going to create a package. So I'm just going to call it APIs. Then I'm going to go to Java class. I'm going to say greet controller. So essentially what we're doing is we are creating endpoints, and whatever endpoints that we create, we always club them together based on the functionality. So this one is going to be like a single endpoint, because greet is just going to greet the user. There's nothing that is going to happen in this one. There's no functionality in it. So I'm just going to make this a REST controller. So we're going to annotate this particular class with a REST controller. So what this means is it's a REST endpoints are going to be defined in this particular controller. So you don't have to do additional markups or additional code to make it a REST endpoint based controller class. So okay, so let's define a function. So I'm going to return a string, and I'm going to say greet the user. So I'm just not going to have any parameters for it right now. It's going to be like an open-ended, and I'm going to say hello user. I'm going to return a string hello user. So this is the fun part now. So we have one class which we have annotated as REST controller. So it essentially means that this particular class is going to hold the API endpoints for us. Now, how do we make this like a REST endpoint, right? So we want to make this like an endpoint. So I'm just going to say get mapping. So get mapping basically defines what is the get URL that I'm going to use on this particular invocation for this particular function. So I'm just going to say greet. So this is how we define any kind of mapping. So you can say get mapping. If it was a post mapping, we would have written post mapping. So this one says /greet. So whatever is your root context of the project, wherever it's the root URL, it's going to append this, and upon invocation of this particular URL, right, it's going to invoke this particular function. So it's very easy to test out. So I'm just going to run the application again. I'm running the demo application. That's the main method in my demo application class. It's going to run up. It's started on 8080, right? So to test it out, I'm just going to use Chrome, whatever you want to use. So I had this. I'm going to use Firefox for now. So you can see that it goes to localhost 8080/greet. It gives you hello user. So let's say you didn't have this, right? You forgot your 8080. So it's going to give you a white label error page. This essentially is nothing but 404. It says there's nothing mapped here, right? There's nothing that is mapped to 8080. Now, how do I change that? How do I maybe write something for the root, right? So it's pretty easy. If you want something in the root as well, you can do it easily using the same logic, right? I'm going to say root, and I'm going to return a string. This is the root. Yep, awesome. I'm just going to say get mapping again, but this time I'm not going to pass anything. It's going to be like the blank URL, right? So I'm just going to rerun this. I don't have hot swap yet. I'm just going to rerun the application. It's going to pick up this endpoint as well. And if I just refresh this, you can see that it goes to this is the root. So we have a root mapping as well. And as you saw, it took us like a couple of minutes to get this application up and running. It was fairly simple, fairly easy, and it's fairly straightforward. So in the next part of the video, I'm going to talk about how do we connect to a database, and we'll then put in a bunch of functionality where we can actually get data from the database, insert data, update data, all those fun APIs that we can create when we have a backing database or something like that. So this is step one of this series for Spring Boot. I hope you liked it. If there are any questions, queries, comments, you can just add it down in the video. I'll leave the description the URL that I used for the Spring initializer. It's fairly straightforward. If you're just getting starting out, I think it's going to help you a lot. So thank you guys. Have a nice day.